Hi, I'm Jello. I'm the guy who does the reviews in 10 words or less videos. And I really like discussing film. I'm not like a student of film, but I like to think I'm a student of story. So anytime someone's like, "Why'd you give it this?" in the comments, I like to write a comment, like a big long, "Here's my opinion." And I try and pin it, or I try and like promote it or however I can so other people can see it, but inevitably people always end up asking the exact same question cuz and I can't blame them because there's no other way for them to see all the comments I've made. So this happens on Twitter too. So I wanted to try and do a way more casual, just me talking about all the films in a marathon. This is just an experiment. Tell me if you guys are interested in this in the comments below, or if you don't care. But I know some people like hearing what I have to say about these things in a little more depth, and obviously, it's pretty hard to sum up an entire film in 10 words. That's kind of why it's the gimmick. And it's almost always easier to just go for a joke or saying something irrelevant than even trying to do that. And even at the end of the videos, when it's like, oh, here's my bigger reviews, those are like on paper, each of those is like 4 sentences at most. Like, there's not a lot to work with there. So, I kind of wanted to do something in a more casual way where I could actually say what I thought about these movies. So this is the one for Pixar. I'm going to try it out for this one. I might retroactively go back and do some Disney stuff. And a couple disclaimers. First of all, I like to make my 10 words or less reviews. I try to keep them PG because they're aimed at a slightly younger audience than my other stuff. This will probably not stay PG because I get very heated about certain movies, either that I like or that I don't like, or that I almost like but have problems with. Uh, Also spoilers for every Pixar movie. So like, if you haven't seen any, like, I will spoil all of them if they're relevant. Like, some I might just be like, it's Bug's Life, screw it. But like, Coco, gonna talk about Coco. I have like one or two flaws with Coco, and which is why it's a 9 and not a 10, and they're spoilers. So if that doesn't interest you, probably don't watch this. But I'll try and talk about it. Here, you know what? Every time I switch movies, this is a trick I do while recording. I will clap twice. So if you really want to be not spoiled on certain movies, then just download this clip and look at it in a thing that shows the waveform of whatever you're listening to, and wherever you see that like double clip, just skip past it. So hopefully that helps. Also, last disclaimer, whenever I would do these movie marathons, I do not just sit down and watch like 40 hours of movie. I'm an illustrator, so I'm always working. I'm always I'm always drawing something, and I'm watching these out of the corner of my eye, so I might miss some things. I know that makes it, some people might say that makes it unfair that I could even review these, but I've gotten pretty good at it because after 3 years of doing it. This is a really long preamble, isn't it? I apologize for that. Yeah, but like, this marathon's been a year in the works. I watched the first 3 Toy Story movies and Bug's Life with friends over a year ago now for this marathon. So my memory will be kind of shaky on some of these. So with all that being said, here are the long reviews. Okay, so also I'm gonna go in chronological order, just looking down this list. And if any movie has a sequel or a prequel, I'm gonna talk about it with the original movie because that's generally how I watch them. So first up, Toy Story, the 3 Toy Story movies. So all 3 of them are good. They're all very good movies. I thought I've seen the first Toy Story the least actually. And I thought I'd like it a little more than I did. I was expecting a 9 or a 10. It's pretty good though. It's not even probably. It's the darkest of all 3 Toy Story movies. Not in like, oh, in the 3rd movie they almost die a couple times. Like, that's pretty dark, but like the overall tone of the first movie is like way more mean-spirited, and they've totally gotten rid of that now that they've made it a franchise. It's like, whoa, fun toys in Bonnie's bedroom. That is not what they were doing before. Toy Story is pretty good. I think an 8's a solid rating. If you told me anywhere from a 6 to a 9, I probably wouldn't argue with you. Toy Story 2, I think, is a worse movie overall. That it's weird because like, this is my least favorite now, and it's the one I have the most nostalgia for because this is the one I owned as a kid. It's a lot goofier, And it's not a bad movie again, but it's a lot goofier, and like, you know, half the movie is just Buzz going to get Woody, and that part's not super interesting, to be honest. Also, I'm not sure why in literally every Toy Story piece of media, Buzz always gets like brainwashed or kidnapped or replaced with another Buzz. Every single time. Like the first movie he starts kidnapped, the second movie he's just Buzz, like, but then he gets replaced with like another Buzz who is in the position he was in the first Toy Story. And then in the third movie, he gets like evil in Spanish. And then in like Small Fry, the short. Oh, I'm not going to talk about the shorts, by the way. That would make this too long. But in Small Fry, he's like, there's like another tiny Buzz that tries to replace him. Like they have no other ideas for Buzz, and I don't know why. But Toy Story 2 is pretty fun. Toy Story 3, weird opinion, is the best Toy Story movie. It is also the one that completely doesn't need to exist. And the biggest thing going against it is just Toy Story 2 again, but better in every way. And that does knock it down a little bit for me, to be honest, because like, you know, it doesn't need to happen, but honestly, I feel like if you really want to watch, like, you don't need to watch the second Toy Story, because the third movie is the exact same story, with slightly different characters, better animation, overall better writing, probably a better plot, and the perfect ending to the series. So I'm not sure why they're making Toy Story 4, but I like 3 the best. I think it's pretty cool that, like, I personally, it's no secret, I hate that Pixar went on this like sequel binge for a decade. I think they got kind of creatively starved for a while, but Toy Story 3, I think, is just them doing an idea that they didn't nail and nailing it, and also giving a really good conclusion to the series. And also they did that thing where they released it at the time when the people who grew up with the first movie were going to college, so it had that additional effect. You can argue whether or not that was intentional. I think it was, but then I think they were like, oh, people really like us bringing back our decade-old movies and making sequels out of them. Let's do it 2 or 3 more times, but badly. And I'll get to that. So that's Toy Story. Bug's Life. I went over Bug's Life. It's just boring. Like, it's not bad, it's just not interesting. I wouldn't recommend it. I think it's actually worse than most good DreamWorks movies. Monsters Incorporated. Monsters Inc. is great. I really like Monsters Inc. a lot. It's a fun concept. They play with it super well. It has really good world building, unlike Monsters University, which has, like, no world building whatsoever. So, Monsters Inc. like has its fun concept. Both of the main characters are great, and they're both played by voice actors and like just actors, I guess, who I really, really like. Steve Buscemi and it's not, well, Steve Buscemi's in it too, but I was confusing him with Billy Crystal. I really like Billy Crystal and John Goodman. I think they do a great job in that movie. It's got a fun tone. It's really solid. I was not excited for the prequel. And I know I called it a sequel in the video, but like, you know what I meant. And I was not excited for the prequel, and my suspicions were well founded because it sucked and didn't need to happen and didn't add anything to anything. I hate movies that don't need to exist. I hate characters that don't need to exist because I think that cutting something is a very easy thing to do in the creative process comparatively, since it saves work for the most part. And maybe if they'd made a good movie or focused on like Brave instead of like maybe taking a little more time on Brave, or figured it out instead of making Monsters University, I think we could have saved ourselves 2 bad movies. And like I should say, almost nothing on the Pixar list is bad. Like, you know, the DreamWorks and Disney, like there are some DreamWorks and Disney movies that are terrible, like just goddamn horrible. Nothing on Pixar's record is that bad. Cars is the worst, and even Cars, I gave it a 2. I'll be honest, that's a little bell curved. It probably deserves a 4, but like, blech. So the reasons I don't like Monsters University, it doesn't add anything to the it doesn't add anything to the Cars universe. That's also true. It doesn't add anything to the universe that Monsters Inc. crafted, and it did a really good job. It's like, here's a cool concept. The monsters in your closet, they're doing that for a job, and they collect your screams. And like, that would have been enough for most movies. That's where like DreamWorks or Illumination would have stopped. But then they add they are also terrified of humans, and then they made it a buddy comedy, which was really, really cool. And then in this movie, it's just like, hey, we've seen some 80s college movies. We know how it goes. How about we just do that? It's like, well, why don't we establish... Like, they could have just had this really fun romp about how Mike and Sully met. Because, like, I know some people start icy and get to be good friends, but, like, wouldn't it have been more fun not to do the, I don't like you, and I don't like you. What an odd couple we are in this college movie. Like, God, that's so trite. I really... That's so trite. I don't have a degree in cinema, but I'm a dick on the internet. No, but, like... Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, that's been done so many times. No one needs to see it. Like, it looks nice-ish. The monster designs, I want to say the monster designs in that movie actually aren't very good, in my opinion. Like, they're, Dean Hardscrabble is really cool. She's really cool looking, and I like, Dawn's Batwing mustache. Other than that, everything's just like... That is a that looks like some kind of Wonka candy grew like eyes and legs, and that's where you stopped. Or maybe fur or a horn. I think it was a little better in the first movie since they had the limitations of earlier work, but earlier tools. But like, instead of doing this, oh, it's college, whoa, movie, I think they could have just done this Mike and Sully meet in college and like are just buddies and like have to deal with these other monsters, or they have to like, or maybe go into Randall more, or not have Randall in it if you're gonna do as lame a job as you did with him. So like, I don't know, it's just such a frustrating movie. I will give it credit. There are two things I like about Monsters Inc. Well, there's a lot I like about Monsters Inc. There's two things I like about Monsters U. The scene in the human world, A, looks gorgeous, and B, is really cool because, again, it's playing off of that fear of humans dynamic. Though, I have to say, if they had that experience, I don't think Mike and Sully would have acted the way they did when they interacted with Boo in the first movie, so that's a little bit inconsistent, but whatever. But that scene looks cool, it's neat, because, again, it's playing off of that unique dynamic. Then you've got the ending, where if you haven't seen it, who cares? You don't need to. So they both get expelled. There is no like, well, you broke the rules, but we're letting you by because I like you. It's just like, no, you broke the rules and I somewhat respect you now, but you're still expelled. And I like that. And I kind of liked their like, sometimes if you work really hard from the bottom up, you don't need a degree or whatever. And they start in the mailroom at Monsters Inc. and they work their way up. And I like that. That was cool. I sure would have liked to see that as a core theme instead of an end slate. Like, it felt more like lip service than really world building, where it's just like, we're sure in the mailroom, and then they walk, like the abominable snowman walks by and he's like, be careful with sorting that mail. If you mess it up, that's a crime punishable by banishment. It's like, what? Oh, great. Now we know how he was banished because of mailroom misplacement. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And like, it's just like, that's not a, oh, here's a cool idea, let's build on this concept we had. That's a, whoa, remember this thing from the first movie? Which is awful. And that's why I like that. I could go on even longer with this movie, but I've been on it forever. So let's move on. Finding Nemo. Crap. So, this is a movie, I can't give this movie a fair rating anymore. I watched it to death as a kid. Like, I have every line in this film memorized. I did my best to be like interested in it. I tried to sort of like off-weight my, yep, I know everything that happens, but like 7, 8, 9, when like for a long time I really thought this was like a perfect movie. I sure didn't think it needed a sequel, and it doesn't, because every plot thread is wrapped up and we didn't need to explore Dory's backstory, but fucking whatever, I guess. Finding Nemo's just good. Has a really good soundtrack. I think the stuff with Nemo in the tank could be a little more interesting. I think that's why I gave it a 7, as I didn't really find that super compelling. Finding Dory. Whew. Finding Dory's really boring. It's just, it's just a movie where, let me make sure this is still recording really quick because I've been going for a while. Okay, good. Finding Dory is about, like, God, it's not about anything. Dory wants to find her parents, and I will give the movie credit. I think they were trying a little. They were like 30% trying to go for this theme of, hey, people who are differently abled are people too, and you should respect the way they see the world and how they work in it. Except they didn't do a good job with that at all, because instead of going like, oh, you're different and we can work with you, and I don't understand the way you see things, but I respect you, and I understand that it works for you. Instead of doing that, they decided to like make Marlin learn his lesson about trusting Dory again, which he learned in the first movie. So now in this movie, he's just an asshole instead of like a concerned, frustrated parent who already did this once. And then like every time it's like, here, I'm a differently abled character, like Dory, or like, to be honest, I think the idea of a animal rehabilitation place in a aquarium is a really good like extended metaphor for that, and a really good platform to make this movie that they shouldn't have made. But then you got like, oh, I'm fucking like I'm Dory and I can't remember things, and that's hard, except when I can remember things suddenly because the plot needs to move along. Oh, and I can't echolocate, except I can. Like it's not like, oh, I'm clinically depressed, or oh, I have like high functioning autism, except now I don't because I need to get over that. Like that's not how that works. That shouldn't be that shouldn't be the mechanical moral, is what I'm going to call that, where like they have the written moral of like, oh, like differently abled people have their way to do things too, and they're equally valid. But like in practice, what they did is actually just whenever differently abled people don't need to, like when they need to move things along, they'll just click and it'll work. Kind of not good. There's a lot of little moments in this movie that frustrated me to no end. So Dory, as a small, cute child, I will say baby Dory and Destiny are adorable. So Dory in this aquarium with her blue tang parents wandered off a little far, and she got sucked off by a current that kicked her out into the ocean. They are in an aquarium. Are you telling me in this aquarium there is, for fish that should not, like, are specifically not allowed to go back to the ocean until they heal, you have a pipe that sucks fish in and shoots them out to the ocean? That's the best thing you could come up with? Like, it's just in the exhibit. Oh, God, it's so stupid. Like, I'd say that's a small thing. It's not even a small thing, because literally the whole plot hinges on it, and they go back to that pipe, like, 12 times. So, whoops. Also, this movie has, like, 6 different climaxes. Like, it keeps ending. It's like, oh, we found my parents. Just kidding, they're not here. Oh, we got back to the place we were at the beginning, so that whole first 30 minutes was a goddamn waste of time. Oh, they're not here either, because they're moved. Oh, I found my parents. Oh, they were going back to the ocean anyway, so this, again, didn't matter. So that's an hour of your time wasted. Oh, like, and then they have these, like, very explicitly, like, here's the big moment, this is the finale, and then it keeps going after it. And the last finale where there's, like, a truck falling off a cliff, and it's either, I think it's to a slow-mo, What a Wonderful World. That's the best part of the movie. That's hysterical. Too bad it's the 4th ending, and I'm so sick of the movie by that point that I'm throwing shit at the screen. See, I told you this wouldn't stay PG. So yeah, that's Finding Dory. I think I'm really happy that people are finally, like, the general consensus is stop making sequels, Pixar, and Pixar has done some missteps. Because, like, after Brave came out, I was like, that kind of sucked. And everyone was like, that was great. And I was like, no, I think they made a bad movie. And people were like, you're wrong and an idiot. And that continued for, like, 2 or 3 movies. Anyway, that's Finding Dory and Finding Nemo. What's next on here? Oh, Incredibles. Incredibles is great. I went over it pretty well in the video. It's just really good. There's like a few nitpicks. I think it's a tick long. It's just a little long. The pacing's a little slow, and it's so weird. I remember Dash and Violet being more important and more interesting, but they really just kind of like ping pong place to place, and especially Violet just whines. So I I know that's like I don't like hate her, but like in a cast of such well-written characters, I was like, "Oh, you're a little stupid." Also, Syndrome is way more petty and boring than I remember. I like Mirage a lot though. Mirage was cool. Um I hope Incredibles 2 is good. That's it. Cars. Okay. Cars is the rare. I just wrote a big YouTube comment about this, which is exactly like, so I don't have to do that anymore, is exactly why I'm doing this recording right now. So, Cars is a series that is very unique in major animations franchises in that it gets better every installation. And I know people are like, but Cars 2 sucks. It's like, no, Cars 2 is just where the general populace realized that Cars was bad. And I don't know why they were cool with it the first time around. So Cars is about Lightning McQueen, who is an unlikable bastard. In a town of idiots and other unlikable bastards, trying to get out of the town of unlikable bastards so he can be an unlikable bastard racer. And then he's just like a jerk the whole time, but it's like, oh, he's gonna fall in love with Sally, even though they have nothing in common whatsoever. And it's like, okay, great. Who cares? And like, there's so many. So, I was talking about Monsters Inc., how it's like, there's specific rules. Like, here's how doors work. Here's how the human world works. Here's their relation to it. Here's how they get power. Here's their perception of humans. Here's the humans' perception of monsters. Like, it was all very tightly knit. Cars is the opposite of that. Cars is like, they are cars. Now we will make car puns without thinking of the ramifications. So, and we're like, the Dodge ramifications. So they think of stuff like, it'll be like, oh, let's make a quick joke about, at this big sporting event, there's a line, I showed it really briefly in the video, there's a line of female cars going into the restroom and male cars going into their restroom, and like, because haha, ladies take longer in the restroom, so there's always a line. And it's like, yeah, first of all, not a great joke, but like, by doing that not a great joke, you are opening up so many questions. The fact, okay, first of all, cars go to the bathroom. I can believe that. I can believe they need like oil changes or whatever. Second of all, more importantly, cars have genders? Why? That means they mate. Things don't have genders or in like sexes. Sorry. Things don't need separate sexes unless they combine them to mate. So, do the cars have sex? In the second movie, the Italian car mentions he has a mother specifically, and she waves at him. So they are born, apparently. How does that work? Like, I don't actually want to know. I'm just saying these are the questions they're raising that are never addressed for the sake of, like, car puns. And, like, we were so in fear. I watched this with friends, and, like, the entire movie, we're just like, I don't understand why anything is happening. Like, why are the tiny bugs, why are they cars instead of, like, and I don't mean, like, why aren't they bugs? Like, why aren't they little helicopters or planes? Like, there's clearly different species, and it's really hard to tell where the sentience is. Like, there's like tractors, and tractors are cows. Like, okay, that's kind of fun, but then, like, other things, sometimes there's, like, big construction equipment, and those can talk, and it's like, hang on, what's the difference? And there's boats. Also, they run on oil. And oil is created by fossilization of, like, meaty, what's the word for this? God damn it, what is the opposite of, like, a robot? Biological. So oil and fossil fuels are created from really, really old biological creatures being broken down. That's why they're called fossil fuels. So at some point, were there fleshy creatures in this universe? Did they become cars? Like, I know this seems like nitpicking, but the fact is, every time you do something like this and don't think about it, it raises questions that, like, break a viewer's immersion. And people have different levels. Like, I'm a dick, so I'll notice immediately and be like, what? That's wrong. But, like, everyone has their limit, and the more of these you do, people will start going, how does this work? Which is why if you look up, like, cars anatomy online, I don't recommend doing that. There's a lot of weird Cars fan art. You can find all this artwork of like, here's maybe a cross section of how cars work. Maybe they've got a human inside them and they're a homunculus. Maybe they have a giant brain. Like, it's just really confusing. And I know it's weird how much I'm focusing on that, but that movie is so boring and unlikable that that's it. I like the soundtrack. I like the soundtrack a lot. I really like that sort of like Southwestern country Fallout New Vegas vibe. I like that a lot. As far as the 3 Cars movies go, people hate Cars 2. I think it's better. Cars 2 opens with a scene, like a really good scene that's well choreographed and cool, of a car spying his way onto an oil rig, and he has to fight some guys. He's got like guns. He can turn into a boat. They kill another car. They kill like 4 or 5 cars on screen in that movie. It's like way more heavy. And that opening scene alone, better than the entire first movie. So immediately it's at least a 3, and it's better because I liked some of it. And then like people are like, oh, Mater sucks. Don't make me defend Mater, but like, he's not that bad. Yeah, sometimes he's like he's like, oh, don't eat that. That's wasabi. Yeah, it's all right. What's up with you? I'm going to be stupid for the sake of a joke. But there's like a good amount of times, and Cars 2 is the worst movie for Mater, unfortunately. Like, he's actually a pretty pleasant companion in the first movie, and he only shows up in like 1 scene in the third one, but he's like such a nice guy in the third movie, especially. That was my last impression of Mater, so that maybe that's coloring me a little bit. But like, McQueen's having like an existential crisis, and he Skypes Mater, who's just sitting up at night, and it's like 3 a.m, and he's just like, Mater, I'm feeling really bad. Well, all right, tell you what, McQueen, you tell me what's wrong, and we gonna talk about it all night if it takes that until you feel better. It's just like, shit, Mater's just a really good, supportive friend. And like, people hate him because like, and a little they should because of what he represents, but like, I'm just saying, I'm not saying it's a good movie, by the way. Cars 2 is also a bad movie, and no one should see it. And it totally shouldn't exist. None of the Cars movies should exist. Especially not the third one, even though it's the best one. But, like, it's not like a 1. It's like a 4 or a 5 or a 3. So, in the third Cars movie, I was so shocked and in a weird way almost disappointed. Cars 3 is a good movie. It's just a good film. It is not like, you don't even need to watch the first 2 movies. In fact, you shouldn't, because it's about Lightning transitioning as he like leaves the sporting career. He becomes a coach and mentors another car who's a lady. And I guess that's a spoiler, but like, it's also not spoiler like on a race car. These are the jokes. Sorry. And like, it's just good. Like, they're both likable characters. The world is consistent in that one. It's not like, whoa, another car pun that makes you question stuff. It's just, yep, everyone's a car, and here's my old car buddies, and it's cool. I like it. It was a pretty good movie. Not great, but like, it's definitely the best Cars movie. All right, that's all the Cars movies. So, ooh, Ratatouille. I didn't think I'd be talking this long, to be honest. I thought I'd be done. I have a lot to say about Ratatouille. Ratatouille and Inside Out, specifically, are the 2 movies that I think are the ones that get away with the most. Like, people really like those movies, and I think both of them are deeply, deeply flawed. Ratatouille especially. Like, I like Inside Out less, because I think Ratatouille is like a bunch of building blocks that I like that were assembled wrong, and Inside Out is just bad. But, I know I gave it a 6. I'm like bell curving again, so it's like, oh, it's terrible for a Pixar movie. So it's like me, like, it's fine, you know, it's like, okay. But Ratatouille, I'll get to that later. Ratatouille is a weird movie, because like, okay, a rat wants to cook, but he's not allowed in the kitchen because he's a rat. Like, that makes perfect sense. And also, he's not respected by his family because he's a cook or something. Makes less sense, but okay. That plot doesn't really ever go anywhere, and it's just resolved because it has to be, so that plot is shit. then he gets by getting the help of a human character, Linguini, who is unlikable, by the way. Linguini is awful. He is boring and creepy. And so there's a moment in the movie where he's just like, come on, little chef, you're the cook and I'm the human. And that really is all he brings to that pairing. He's not clever. He's not charismatic. He's not a good liar. It's literally just Ratatouille in a mech that sometimes talks and flirts with human girls awkwardly. Oh my God. There's a scene where Linguini is like, when Colette, who's the female love interest, who is like a go-get-em, puts her job first, hot, like, warrior chef, who could have been a really cool character, is just like kind of warming up to him, and he starts being like really creepy when he's trying to find a way to reveal Remy to her. And Remy, basically, to prevent him from telling her, makes him kiss her, and like she's clearly really unnerved, like she's pulling out the pepper spray, and then they just make out. And like, your mileage may vary on how weird that is, but I really felt like that encompassed their relationship, where it's just like, this is okay because we're protagonists. Like, Linguini, it's not even that they don't have any chemistry, it's that Linguini isn't even a chemical. He's like a rock nearby the chemistry set with googly eyes drawn on him that you can drop into a solution and there might be like some kind of chemical reaction, but like, he's not a chemical. There's no chemistry there. Fuck Linguini is what I'm saying. So there's that. And then for like the first 3/4 of the movie, there's this antagonist who's like the old chef, and he's like, oh, I am in charge of this restaurant, and I'm making money off of it. And Linguini shows up, and Linguini is the old owner's son and the legal owner, if he unless he doesn't claim the ownership in like 3 months. But Linguini doesn't know that. And like, the chef is like freaking the fuck out, like, what if he finds out? And it's like, what? Don't tell him. You're the only one who knows. You have burned the letter. That I don't understand why you're scared of this. This isn't even a problem, but like, sure, if you want to be insane, that's fine. And then 2/3 into the movie, he's just gone. Like, they kick him out, and he's like still kind of an antagonist, but fuck him. And then they bring in the guy who should have been the main antagonist the whole movie, Anton Ego, who's like this food critic. And that would have been way more interesting is if they combined those characters and made him like a food critic who was really, really like, how did this restaurant that I shut down bounce back so quickly? Who is this mysterious chef? I must know. And it's like, part he wants to like settle the score with this mysterious new chef, and part like he genuinely wants to know this person. And I think that would have been a more interesting villain. But Anton Ego is a good, interesting character who's only in the last quarter of the movie. And at the end of the movie, he delivers this big speech about like the importance of criticism and what critics are supposed to do and how they're supposed to, like, yeah, it's fun to knock things easily as I do, and just be like, that sucks. And it gets a visceral reaction of, yeah, or no. And like, it's fun. But also a critic's real job is to encourage critical thought. And most of all, to, in the case of this movie, put a spotlight on people who would not get it without the help of that critic, like people who really deserve it. And he did that for Remy at the cost of his own job. But all of his stuff, which is a really great, like, oh my God, I'm so pissed they wasted him. He's in like 25% of the movie, should have been there the whole time, and he delivers this like great speech. Like, literally, I was watching the movie, I was like, this is a 4 out of 10 at best. I'm so bored. It's so scatterbrained. I don't like any of the characters. And then he delivers this speech, and I'm like, wow, that really got to me. The movie totally sucked, but like, gosh, what a good ending. So you walk out of it thinking it's a better movie than it was. And that's the trick. That's the rat trick. And I really wish they'd been a little more coherent. Like, they had all these subplots. They've got like Remy and his family. They have Linguini and the chef. They've got Anton Ego and the restaurant. They have Colette. Oh, they also have this like group of like, it's like they wanted to do this theme of, oh, even the underdog and even people with checkered pasts can like show their talents, and you can give them second chances, or like you can bet on a dark horse and still win. Like Remy, No one would bet he's a good chef. He's a fucking rat. But he is a great chef. And because they give him that chance, he gets to shine. And the entire rest of the chefs in that place, they're all like, I was an ex-pirate. I was an ex-con. I got it. Like, I just keep using jail as an example. But like, yeah, they're all like, they'll have a history. And they were all hired. And it's like, oh, they're building somewhere with that. But instead it's just like, take a chance on this rat, you guys. And they all go, fuck you, and leave, and don't come back. It's like, why were they in the movie then? Why did you give me the time? Why did you tell me about that stuff? It really feels like they had like 3 main plots they wanted to do. And they took like 50% of the Linguini inheritance plot and did it badly. They took like 30% of the Remy's family drama plot and did it badly. And then like 20% of the Anton Ego plot and did it amazingly. And I think what people remember when they walk out of that movie is that part, which is why I think that is one of the, like, that's, I'm so passionate about this, and I could write an essay, honestly, on this movie and how it could have been great and how it isn't, and how I wish people recognize that. Because I was so impassioned about this that I was like, maybe instead of doing here's the worst ones, because they're all Pixar, like none of them are that bad except Cars, and maybe people won't be interested. I was really considering doing hey, instead of that, I'm just going to talk about Ratatouille and Inside Out, if that's okay with you guys. Because I would have liked to facilitate that discussion. Anyway, that was a long time on Ratatouille. Moving on. WALL-E. WALL-E is great. I talked about it. I know people don't like this. That's fine if you don't like those parts of the movie. You're wrong, though. It's a great film. If you don't like the humans and the environmentalist message, which like of all the messages to be too preachy about, like I've seen too preachy environmentalism. Like Birdemic is too preachy environmentalism. WALL-E is not too preachy environmentalism. Also, it came out 10 years ago when like environmentalism was like becoming very popular in especially children's media, but like now it's like a requirement. So like now it probably feels a little more trite, but I'm gonna look that up. Am I using that word correctly? Let's find out. Is Jello an idiot? Overused and consequently of little import. No, I was using that perfectly. Great. I felt like a jackass. Yeah, WALL-E's really good. And if you don't like that part, then fine. Just watch the first 30 to 40 minutes of the movie. That's it. Okay. Up is really cute. Every time I watch this movie, I have a different opinion on it. I always love the first 10 minutes and the last 5 minutes, obviously. But then the middle, it's anywhere from like a 5 to a 9 for me. And it changes every time. And this time it landed on like a 7 or a 6. But the rest of the movie was really good. Probably a 7. Up is really cute. I like how storybook it is. Like, Up is a movie where I wouldn't be like, you couldn't lift a house with balloons. Because, like, the world it presents is very cute and cartoonish. And I like that vibe. I wish more animated films did that vibe. So I like this movie a lot. It's just good. Obviously, the best part is the opening. But, like, the rest of it's also good. And I wish the villain was a little less... I'm suddenly crazy. And also my friend has a complaint about him where he's like, yeah, no, so if this guy was like in his 20s or 30s when Carl was a child, if Carl's like a 60 or 70-year-old man, Charles Muntz should be dead. And yeah, correct. I actually really like the blimp finale. It's a fun fight. Moving on. Brave. Brave sucks. Brave is a total waste of a cool concept. I don't know if you remember the marketing for Brave, but they didn't market the bear twist at all, where the mom turns into a bear and it's Freaky Friday with bears. They marketed it as this like cool independent Scottish princess who maybe had to fight a monster bear. That would have been a great movie. But instead it's just Bear Freaky Friday, which like also can be an okay concept, but kind of wasn't, because Merida and the mom are both... Merida especially is not actually a very likable character. I always feel bad when it's like, it's not as bad as some people claim, but there's this level of like, oh, look at this character. It's like, it's Merida or whatever. And then it's just like, I don't really like Merida. It's like, what, you don't like the strong, independent woman character? It's like, no, I don't like strong, independent women characters when they're written badly, because I'd prefer more of them and I'd prefer them all to be awesome. Thank you very much. And Merida is not that. Same with Korra in Legend of Korra. Totally unrelated, but she is a fucking terrible character. And everyone's like, oh, my cool protagonist. Merida's the same way. I'll probably do a So This Is Basically on Korra one day, so I can talk about that later. But Brave is also really slapstick. Like, there's a lot of just like, oh, here's the brothers, and they're doing like goofy stuff with like dogs and the maid and blah blah blah, and it's like, okay, it's not really fun. I don't really like these characters. There's so much like, that was okay. Like the witch and the crow in the hut. Like, I feel like that could have been a really fun character, but she isn't. I feel like there was cool Scottish lore, like the wisps and the bear. They actually go into Mordu's backstory a little more in one of the shorts, but it's like kind of equally boring. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they couldn't have salvaged this. But Brave feels like, and I'm aware that Brave had that, like, it had a terrible production cycle. Like, they kept changing it. They kept doing different versions of it. So what came out was kind of muddled. The same thing happened to Frozen, except Frozen kind of came out a winner somehow. Yeah, that's it. Inside Out. Okay. Let me take a drink of this water. Inside Out. When I saw people giving Inside Out 9s and 10s, I was so baffled by that decision. Inside Out is not a terrible movie. It is a movie that I actively dislike. Despite that, I gave it a 6 because I imagine this movie. I can imagine an audience for this movie who likes it. That audience is children. It looks very pretty. I love how the main characters look. I like the designs. This movie is not a movie. It is a walking corridor of, hey, we came up with a fun way to visualize an aspect of the human mind. Here it is. It has no impact on the plot, but we're going to spend 5 minutes here talking about it and representing it. And that is it. Also, walking you along this journey are Joy and Sadness, 2 unlikable characters who have no dynamic with one another and are not fun to watch, and Bing Bong, who is not a character. We just wrote him in there so we could give you a sad death and make you feel sad. And like, yeah, I cried the first time he died, but I sure didn't give a shit. Like, I was crying and I actively said in the theater, like, oh, fuck you, while crying, because like, they just went, okay, we'll have a character. Oh, and he can have a sad death here. That's such a good sacrifice. Inside Out's villain is a giant hole. Like, Joy and Sadness get zipped out, and like, that's fine. Like, that's a fine coincidence. This is actually a Pixar rule that they don't follow very often, to be honest. It is always fine to get your protagonists into danger using a coincidence. You should never get them out of danger using a coincidence, because that feels cheap, but getting them into danger via coincidence feels reasonable. Or at least, like, it's like, the randomness of life, c'est la vie, que sera, sera. But like, so it's like, oh no, we're on the outside of our mindscape. How are we gonna get back to headquarters? First of all, quite frankly, I don't believe there's no, like, elevator to headquarters. Just, why isn't there? That doesn't make any sense. And, like, again, I know these sound like nitpicks. They are not, because these should have been addressed at some point, or better, instead of going like, here's why there's a hole and we can't get back. They should have just come up with a better reason they couldn't get back. So, I'm running on 4 hours of sleep, by the way, so this is destroying me. Also, it's so fucking dumb. In the end scene, there's like guys repairing the window for the headquarters people. How did they get back in there? How does this work? The villain is poor infrastructure. Like, no, and like, that's so stupid in an animated movie, because you can adjust that as the creator of the animated movie. That's lame. Also, it's a traveling movie where it's just like, here is the thing, here's another thing. And like, that's boring. There's giant inconsistencies between the obstacles that they face. So early on, here's two big ones. Early on, Joy is like, oh, the train of thought, that goes by headquarters. We just have to hop on it and we'll be good. And they're trying to get on it, and they miss it, and it's like, ah, damn. Oh well. And then the nighttime filter comes on. It's like, okay, well, Riley's asleep. At least no more damage can be done while she's asleep, and we have to go find the train of thought while it's not running. And they get to it, and they're on it, and it's like, or they get to it later after another day-night cycle has passed. And they get on the train. I might be misremembering it a little, but I remember the inconsistency fairly well. They hop on the train. It's like, okay, now all we have to do is wait here. And Joy's like, oh, damn, what? I wish she wasn't asleep. And it's like, because the train of thought and everything's gonna be ruined. It's like, no, you said earlier nothing could go wrong while she was asleep, you dumb idiot. So just wait there on the train of thought. But no, they don't. They hop off the train of thought and get fucked for no reason. And like, it's okay to have deeply flawed characters if they're driving the narrative, or if we get to see them change, or if their actions are relatable or make sense, but none of those are happening. So, also, I don't really like Riley very much. Like, she's not bad, she's just not very interesting. Her parents are okay, but like the human world's not very interesting. A couple times they mention like, oh, this would be fun if we did such and such. Like, here's the mom's inner thoughts, here's the dad's inner thoughts. That was fun. I would have liked them to initially, I would have loved to see more of that. And they play with it more in the credits sequence. But then they like kind of play with it more in Riley's first date, the short, and I thought it was boring. So maybe I'm wrong again. Maybe it's just bad writing. It's bad writing. So the other thing that, like, oh my god, I was so mad at this. So in the first part of the movie, like just after they've gotten out of headquarters, they're like, oh no, we have to get back. We're stuck in long-term memory. And they watch a tube suck up little orbs that go up to headquarters, and they're like, ah, darn. And I'm like, what? Can't you just go through the tube? We'll just go through the tube. Like, the guys even say, like, all right, we're bringing these right to headquarters or whatever. And then like later in the movie, Joy's just like, wait, a tube! We can get to headquarters. It's like, what? That's like watching a movie about people trying to cross a canyon, and they see like a zip line or something early in the movie, and it's like, that's only for packages. What a shame. And then later in the movie, they see the same fucking zip line and go, we can use the zip line. It's like, all right, so how about I just cut out the entire middle 40 minutes of your movie, because they didn't need to happen. Like, that matters. When you get to create the entire mindscape, it cannot be that hard to come up with better obstacles and better solutions than that. Also, so I should say I'm down with the theme of like emotionality, like accept sadness and be more open. And maybe Joy shouldn't be such a huge, colossal bitch. God, Joy is awful. I hate her. But like, joy and sadness aren't, I think they should have made all of the emotions characters in and of themselves and not just only their emotion. Because like, while Joy is a bitch, I'm also like, yeah, I wouldn't want to talk to sadness either. What a fucking bummer. And like, I think they should have made them people and not just like, like fear has a little personality that isn't fear. The best scene in the movie is he's heckling a dream and he's just like, what? Seen it, whatever. And it's like, oh, he's not scared. Like, that's funny. When he's not scared, he's like heckling or whatever. None of the other ones show that complexity. Also, why is disgust in the movie? I don't know why disgust is in the movie. I know there's actually 6 core emotions that all humans have. I can't remember the last one. It might be surprise. Like, no matter what culture you're in, these are the expressions everyone recognizes universally. So they are the, quote, core emotions. So I'm not sure why disgust made the cut and surprise didn't. That's not really a criticism, I'm just thinking about it. Anyway, that's enough. The Good Dinosaur. This movie's not very good either. I gave it a 7, or did I? No, I gave it a 6. Good. Okay, I was gonna say 7 might be a little high. So, The Good Dinosaur is a Western dinosaur dog movie. It's a hypothetical, what if well, what if humans never happened because the dinosaurs were fine and the dinosaurs evolved? Like, okay, fine concept. Also, it's a Western, so it's a dinosaur Wild West tale. All right, I'm kind of down for that. Also, it's a boy and his dog movie, and the boy is the dog, or the dog is the boy. You pick it out. Why? So it's weird because they push what I would say is by far the weakest of the three pillars of this concept of like, here is a human boy who is your dog. Because like in the middle core of the movie, he doesn't matter very much. And then at the end, it's like, oh, my good friend Spot, I am crying because also they name him Spot. Fuck it. Like, come on. Come on. Lame. I know it's a nitpick, but like name him anything else, guys. Or like I guess they could have named him Rover and I would have been equally pissed. But like, come on. Come on. So there's some really good like I like the vibe a lot. I would love to see like Pixar keeps dipping into this southwestern or just general Western vibe. Like Cars 1 has it and like their soundtrack and it's really good. Like Cars has a pretty good soundtrack, honestly, I have to say. They also do it with yeah, the Good Dinosaur and Cars, I guess, are just the two. But like they keep kind of going like, we kind of here's some Western elements. Like I would love to see them make a Western. I think they do a really good job of it. But they do like there's too much going on. And it's weird. At the same time, there's too much going on conceptually and not enough going on story-wise. Arlo's not super interesting. Most of the dinosaurs he meets are pretty cool. I like the pterodactyl cult who follow the storm. That's a believable, that's a kind of a Wild Westy crazy hillbilly cult. I like that. I love the T-Rex ranchers. Those guys are great. They're the best part of the movie. Especially the dad who has this like amazing deep southern western cowboy voice. And oh god, he's so good. So there are good elements of this movie. I just don't give a crap about Spot. I don't really give a crap about Arlo. Oh, he just falls into a river. What an idiot. Yeah. So like it could have been better. That's it. And then one more. So the last movie on here. Sorry, this is how long is this? Like 45 minutes? 50. I talk too much. So Coco. Coco is very, very, very good. If you have like one of those cheapo theaters that gets their movies like a couple months late and it's still playing, oh, dude, go see it. It's a really, really good movie. Go buy, don't pirate it. Go actually watch it. Coco is, they bill it as a, not quite a boy and his dog movie, but there is a boy and a dog. It's weird. They don't bill Hector as or Hector. I'm just going to call him Hector because I always feel really, I feel like I don't actually speak Spanish. I just love how it sounds. And I like doing the accent. But I always feel like a jackass whenever it's just like talking in my American accent, and then I say a word in Spanish, and it's like whenever people do that, it bothers me. So I'm just gonna call him Hector. No, but I guess it is spelled Hector, so I guess I should do that. All right. Well, sorry to go over like that. That was a waste of time. Anyway, so it's a buddy adventure with Hector and Miguel, and both of them are very good. Hector especially is super likable. God, I don't want to spoil this movie, but I mean, you're here. You're 50 minutes in. You knew the deal. So if you haven't seen this, stop listening. This is the last one. There's nothing else. So, but like, go see it. But if you don't care, and you should, if you don't care, then, so he's got kind of the Footloose thing going on, Miguel, of like, oh, I can't do music because my family are jerks and they want me to make shoes. And that's because my however many great-grandfathers ran away from my great-great-grandmother to go do music. And the implication is the famous singer Ernesto de la Cruz is he's the bad guy. Or, well, no, that's the spoiler, sorry, oops. He's supposed to be the grandfather because he looks like him and he has his guitar, but his grandfather's actually his buddy Hector, because who was killed by De La Cruz, and he stole all his songs, and nobody knew that but De La Cruz. And I love those two. This movie has like This movie has great, like, really good world building. First of all, it's really pretty. I love the Land of the Dead. I love Dia de los Muertos. It's so, God, I love how it looks. This movie's so pretty. And they gotta get, he has to get, I don't know why I'm describing the plot. It doesn't matter. But anyway, Ernesto de la Cruz is the villain, and he is pretty much the thing that is knocking it down from a 10 for me. He's not a terrible villain. I was just talking about this with a friend the other night. So it's similar to the villain in Up, who is like, oh, he's my hero, but then I meet him and he's like secretly a crazy murderer. He's the opposite of him, where I think the guy in Up has a, like, I think his motives are like pretty stupid. And also it's like, I've got my bird, and then a child comes on his blimp and he's like, time to murder this child. It's like, you don't need to, you have the bird. So, like, his motives are questionable, but his villain turn makes perfect sense, because he's crazy. Meanwhile, I think that Ernesto de la Cruz has pretty good motivation, because, like, oh, if this kid gets this guy back, and people, like, make this connection that I might have murdered my old partner, and I was a sham, people will stop remembering me in the real world, or the living world, and I will start to fade away. So he's like, haha, I can't do that, so I'm gonna get rid of Hector, and I can't send this kid back. But, like, the way he does it really bothers me, because it's like, Miguel's like, yeah, that's okay, man, I don't believe him, like, whatever, he's a crazy guy. Okay, I'm going to throw you in a prison. It's like, well, what, why? You don't need to. Like, the heel face turn on him is very strange, or I guess the face heel turn. It's hard to say why. I wish they, like, it's not terrible, but I wish they did it with a little more nuance. It kind of feels like, I need to be the villain now, so I throw you in a lagoon to die. It's like, well, nothing about you so far would suggest you would operate this way. Like, even, yeah, you poisoned my great-great-grandfather to steal his songs, but you also poisoned him. You didn't, like, grab a sword and go, die, you fool, and, like, stab him. Like, you know, that's it. Also, I wish they did a little more with the family in the afterlife world, because I know the big theme is, like, respect your family, and by self-admission, I am not a family person. I am, it just doesn't hold any, like, blood is no thicker than water for me. And so I have a hard time buying that. Like, I understand the cultural importance, obviously, and I understand the importance for this family, but the living family was dicks enough to him, especially the grandmother. Like, fuck. Like, I was so mad at her when she broke the guitar or whatever. I was like, oh my god, you bitch, I want to punch you. But I was actually, small note, I was really happy that, like, the grandmother was a giant bitch, but, like, the dad, who was also angry, saw her doing that, was like, whoa, hey! Yeah, but, like, also the dead family, the matriarch of the dead family, was, like, also a little too unreasonable for my tastes, for most of the movie. Ooh, I do want to give it props, though. Normally, I hate, I was, like, I did a ton of theater and a ton of stage stuff, in school, both, especially high school and a little college, and I can't stand any time in fiction there's a scene where it's just, like, there's a play going on, and then, like, the main characters will run through it, or they're, like, fighting and they ruin the show. Like, oh my god, you have no idea how devastating that is to me every single time. I'm like, no, this is so much hard work you're destroying, and they have to work around it. This movie has one of the absolute best, like, on-stage performance finales I've ever seen, where they don't do, like, they work themselves into the performance and do the encounter during that. God, I love that. It's a really good, also the music is so good. I was listening to it and singing it on loop while making this video. Coco's really good. Go see Coco. Yeah, again, I wish the family was, like, just a little more understandable. Maybe not even likable. They could still be antagonists, but especially the matriarch. I wish she was a little less like, I will let you die if you, like, she's really gonna keep this child in fucking like dead if he like never agrees to give up his passion. Like what a bitch. You know, like that's too unreasonable for me, but you get the idea. Anyway, for anyone who made it this far, thank you for listening to this hour-long clip of me complaining about things that don't matter. If you like this, like if you listen to this sincerely, please leave a comment and let me know on Patreon, because I never know if anyone's checking this stuff out or not, and this is the kind of thing that takes a lot out of my voice, and you know, it takes some time. So if people are interested in this, I'd love to do them more, but if no one cares, then whatever, no one cares. So there you go. Yep, thanks again. Bye.